Hey, I'm Jordan Woods Robinson. This week on SOSstudio Sessions, we're trying something new. I'm recording this as a video for YouTube and then putting the audio as a podcast on iTunes. It's something that I've been mulling over for a while, and I think this week's topic is the perfect place to test it out. I'd love to hear your feedback about this format since I'd like to consider doing this into 2016. So send me a tweet on Twitter or drop me an email and let me know your thoughts. This week, we're going to talk about how to set your goals for 2016 and distill them down into one word to rule them all, a word that encapsulates everything that you want to achieve and that can be actionable and deliverable. And I've got a list that I'll show you in a little bit to give you some places to start. But first, as far as I can tell, most people attribute this idea to Amy Porterfield, but I'm sure the idea has spread out far and wide among those circles in which people need to have a clear focus over a long stretch of time. This allows you to take your eye off of the monthly sprints on the calendar and expand it into 3, 6, and 12-month marathons. But just like a marathon, you can't do the whole thing without smaller training sessions, strengthening your muscles and improving your stamina. So this one word will take us out to see that big picture, and then we'll work backwards and use the word to find the smaller tasks that will carry us through to our goals. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to throw out my word that I've settled on, and that is planning, or plan if you want to make it a verb. But planning resonates with me more. It strikes a bit more fear in my heart, so I've gone with that. As an artist, planning is usually my biggest foe. I train myself to trust my gut and to make decisions impulsively and then make adjustments as needed. But I have big goals for 2016. I will record a new full-length album and release it on a massive scale. I will create more video content for SOSstudio, including video podcasts, free DIY videos for YouTube, and exclusive video courses for the SOSstudio members on branding and networking and self-promotion tools. And I have 52 podcast episodes staring me in the face. And I will have that planned out far into the future so I don't have that weekly freak out moment when I don't have a guest or a topic for my podcast in 2 days. And lastly, knowing that all of this is planned out will allow me to focus more time on my family and to be with them 100% when I'm home. Speaking of family, we have a tradition that my wife and I started before we had kids, and now we do it all together. This is our family gingerbread house that we build during the holidays. We all sat down and we worked together to build the house, add the icing, and decorate with the beads and the gumdrops that you see. And we display it on our counter for all of our guests and ourselves during the holidays, and it brings us great joy. We also write the year on the side so that we remember when we made it. And now, in 2 days, at the time of recording this, on January 1st, 2016, we will take this beautiful little 2015 gingerbread house outside and smash the living crap out of it, as a family, in a very ceremonial way, staying away from violence or anger as we smash it with hammers and feet, but celebrating the structure and the beauty of 2015 while welcoming the new year with open arms. And I'll make sure to record that as well and put it up if you want to see it. Okay, so I've shared my word, planning, and we'll get into the steps of how to uncover that for yourself. But first, I want to discuss what this is not. This is not about getting bogged down in the details. For each major goal that you come up with, there are going to be hundreds of smaller tasks to get you there. And it would be so easy to only see the stress of the small tasks and to lose sight of the bigger picture. But as I said before, this is like training or like a workout. So if your goal is to gain 10 pounds of muscle, you're not going to spend 10 hours a day, 5 days a week at the gym doing cardio and weightlifting and yoga. You're going to go on specific days, spread out for a short amount of time, and really focus on one muscle group and exhaust that. And then you'll give that time to rebuild while you work on something else, the next time. By breaking it down into these smaller chunks, you make it more efficient, it's more enjoyable, and it's much more economical to achieve your larger goal of gaining 10 pounds of muscle. One more smart way to think of this is the CEO mindset versus the worker bee mindset. And this is coined by the very smart Chase Reeves over at fizzle.co. He says that it's the CEO mode or planning mode versus worker bee mode or doing mode. And in order to know that what you're working on right now is the right thing, you have to step out and see the big picture as a CEO would. But then the success of it all, the honey, does come back down to minutia, the details of the small tasks from A to B, from B to C. And in order to get from A to B and B to C, you have to have already planned out A to Z. So I'll put a link to watch Chase talk about all this in the show notes. That's at sosstudio.co/session 50. Whoa, this is episode 50. So finally, how to do this. These aren't steadfast, copy this template and you'll have an answer before you kind of ideas. These are more open-ended and will actually require some thought on your part, and each person will be completely different. But this is something you can easily make a big dent in an afternoon or a quiet evening, or maybe even on a dedicated jog where your thoughts are not blurred by anything else. So first, review this last year, 2015. If you can, write down the things that you accomplished this year and the things that you learned, okay? What you accomplished and what you learned. Multiple people that do this, they lock themselves away from all the distractions and take the time to write it down in a book rather than typing in a book. You feel more connected. So if you have analytics built into your website, look and see what pages were visited most. Look and see how many albums you sold through iTunes, how many people subscribed to your newsletter, how many songs you started, how many songs you finished. Try to collect as much data as you can in all of the fields that interest you moving forward. Okay. Now take note of what was awesome and what exceeded your goals and what sucked and what could have been better. If you don't have any of this data, then just remember what you can and focus on remembering the positive as well as the negative when you write that down. Oftentimes the negative rises to the top, so try to get the positive in there too. Next, take a deep breath to clear your mind, and now write down your goals, big and small, for 2016, achievable and pipe dream. I mentioned I want to record a new album and spend more time with family. Maybe you want to grow your newsletter to 1,000 dedicated fans, or you want to play more live shows. Maybe you want to get signed to a publishing house in LA. Write down these big goals, but fully realize they're not all going to be achievable in 1 year, especially if you truly want to succeed at them. At a certain point, if you add on one more, it's only going to dilute from the others. So pick your battles. And now look and see if any of your goals could be nested within another. You've got a lot of things written down. For example, if you have record a demo record and get signed to a publishing house as goals, then recording a record should actually be listed under get signed to a publishing house, because it would be one of the steps toward that larger goal. Okay? So you've just cleared up some space there. Now go back and look at everything and see if you can find any themes, any word that you've written multiple times, or something that would encapsulate the processes for these 2 to 3 biggest goals on your list. For me, it was planning, like I said. But for others, it could be anything. Actually, here's a list of words that might spark something inside you. There's a lot of them, and they're all from different people. These are real words that I've seen people offer as their words for 2016. And this is kind of like a tattoo. Anything that has a deeper meaning to you, any word that conjures memories or intentions whenever you see it, is probably the right word for you. It doesn't have to mean anything to anyone else but you, although it will probably be easier to remember and explain to others if this is a word, if it's a word from this list or similar to this list. Here's some words: community, commit, planning, remarkable, networking, appreciate, patience, revenue, growth, content or content, focus, courage, invention, intentional, simplify, transition, roots, perseverance. And each of these are general enough to cover a wide range of tasks and goals, but also specific enough that they will be that conduit for that person to carry them along the correct path. You can think of this word and it'll take you all the way through. If you want to see that list of words again, I know I went through kind of quickly. I'll have it in the show notes at SOSstudio.co/session50. So after you have your word and your bigger goals, your CEO goals, it's now time to start planning out mile markers and smaller worker bee tasks along the path. And if you're overwhelmed at this point, like I am trying to describe it, let's define the larger tasks that have to be completed at a certain time in order for you to reach your final goal. So on a calendar, for example, you'd have the final goal completed in December, maybe. But there have to be 3 major things completed in March, July, and November in order for that goal to happen. So you've just taken a year view and broken it down into 4 smaller chunks with specific goals in mind. Then each of those chunks has tasks within it that dissect it down further until you're left with seemingly everyday tasks that are propelling you forward all the way through to the rest of your year. To do all of this, I bought a large desk calendar, one of these guys, big old thingy that I can revisit at any time. But this doesn't necessarily have to be linear. If your work is community, if that's your word, for example, community, your focus might be on those everyday conversations coming your way on social media and email and making your audience's lives better. So how can you account for that on a calendar? Most of it you can't, but you can schedule a chunk of time each day to really focus on social media and set it aside for work time. So set aside time to actually be on social media. And you can also set up mile markers on your calendar for yourself of rebrand all social media channels by this date, or send out a monthly newsletter first Thursday of every month, or whatever. Whatever you decide, make it deliverable. Rather than saying, I'm going to improve my YouTube channel in 12 weeks. That's not actionable. That's not deliverable. Say, I'm going to respond to every comment on my YouTube channel within 6 hours for 12 weeks. Or I'm going to post a new video every week for 12 weeks, right? So if there's a lot in front of you and you're wondering what to do first, start with what excites you, because that will give you the most energy. Sometimes it's the little tasks that you're excited about that will turn into the bigger projects that have the most meaning. Embrace the power of momentum and start with what excites you. As a great place to start, I recommend listening to a short podcast I recorded about figuring out exactly what that first step is. And you'll often be surprised that the first step is literally the simplest option in front of you. That's session 43 in my show notes, or episode 43 on iTunes. So check that out if you'd, on the podcast, if you'd rather go listen to that. Now, just like many New Year's resolutions, this has potential to start off running full steam and giving you an adrenaline kick through the first couple of months and then dying in your closet along with your semi-new yoga pants. And if that happens, that's okay. It'd be very, very easy for this to become a pitfall that if you drop off for a little while, your earlier habits would be ready to take over and you'd never get back on the train, right? But the idea with this is to adapt this as a lifestyle, to get it so in your body that you don't have to think about it anymore. And with any lifestyle, you'll go through moments of weakness or failure. That's just part of life. But then the word that you choose is that tattoo. It's that daily reminder that you wear in order to remind yourself where your priorities lie in 2016. Allow it to serve as a conduit, a wormhole from your current state of, oh, I don't know, I just want to take some time off, into your goals of conquering 2016. I was talking with my friend and longtime collaborator, Corey, a couple of days ago, and he brought up a quote that I've not been able to track down, so it might just be too paraphrased at this point that it's untraceable, but it goes something like this. Your progress will only be as great as the number of steps you've made outside of your comfort zone. Your progress will only be as great as the number of steps you've made outside of your comfort zone. I found that really powerful. If you're looking to change your lifestyle for a year, to focus on things that are currently out of your reach but promised to you on the horizon, you have to wander far away from your comfort zone. But the great part about this is that is the bigger picture CEO stuff. It's the bigger picture stuff of just imagining what your goal is, right? And picturing it. And then you have to break it down into the smaller steps of how to get there. And those smaller steps are probably completely within your comfort zone. These are the worker bee steps that as long as you keep your head down and you stay focused, you'll continue to make progress toward your goals, and your comfort zone will follow along with you. So lastly, I want to know what your word is. So if you please reach out on Twitter, or if you're watching on YouTube, include it in the comments below. And while you're at it, feel free to leave me some feedback. If you like this video element, leave me a comment. I'll make sure to reply. On iTunes, you can also leave a review for the podcast, and that's the best way for new people to find us and to join in on the conversation. Thank you so much. I wish you a happy new year and an incredible 2016. Let's do this together. Thanks, guys. I'm Jordan saying release your sound with SOS Studio.